الموت بالحق ذلك ما كنت منه تهيد ونفخ في الصور هذا ما لدي عتيد ألقيا في جهنم ألقيا في جهنم ألقيا في جهنم كل كفار عنيد مناع للخير معتد مريب الذي جعل مع الله إلها الذي جعل مع الله إلها آخر فألقياه في العذاب الشديد قال قرينه ربنا ما أطغيته ولكن كان في ضلال بعيد قال لا تختصموا لدي وقد قدمت إليكم بالوعيد ما يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعبيد آمنت بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Reciting for the next 12 nights during these holy nights of Muharram. Syed Abdullah Naqeeb is from Australia, Sydney. He's an Islamic lecturer. He's completed his bachelor in medical science at the Western Sydney University with a major in chemistry. He is currently completing his degree of Islamic theology for his Hawza studies under the supervision of Sheikh Mansour Leghai. He has lectured around the centers in Australia for the Ahlul Bayt, as well as internationally in the Middle East, Europe, and America. He's a dear friend and brother of mine, and inshallah tonight he'll be speaking on the topic of Barza. I'd like to welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Rahman, verse number 19, He says, مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Barzakh, inshallah, will be the topic for this youth lecture for tonight, inshallah. So we're going to ask a few questions tonight. We're going to answer them. The first of which is, what is Barzakh? The second is, where is this particular aspect of Barzakh? The third is, when is Barzakh and its length? So people ask, because many people think, that's it, you die and then you'll be resurrected. Many people don't have the opinion and the understanding that there's all of a sudden this intermediate between when a person dies and is buried within the grave until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrects us in the hereafter. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to this particular world in the Quran when He tries to tell us about this aspect of a veil. بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ. There's a particular veil between these two seas that Allah refers to. This particular veil is unseen, or is referred to as a barzakh. This world is derived and it refers to this also world between this world that we live in and the hereafter. This particular world of Barzakh has its particular characteristics. Because as we know, in this world we have a particular human body that's made of clay. We feel pain in this body. We utilize this body for our a'mal, whether it be sins or good deeds. Inshallah, everyone's doing good deeds, especially in this time of Muharram. And in the hereafter, when we're punished, we're also punished with this particular body when our souls return to it and we're resurrected. However, the question is, in Barzakh, when we die, we know that our soul is extracted from our body. When our soul is extracted and our body goes into the earth, that's when Barzakh starts. And it concludes when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously, says that now is the time for the eternal judgment, which is Yawm al-Qiyamah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have our bodies return and our souls put back into them. During Barzakh, however, the question is our souls the ones that will be either punished or rewarded, or will the body in our grave be punished and rewarded? Now the ulama come forth and said that in the time of Barzakh, after you die, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant each and every one the body which is known as a barzakh body. Remember, we said about the jinn that they have a very latif character and elemental makeup. Likewise, the barzakh body is a body that looks like you and exactly how you were in this life, to place your soul inside. And that's why when someone sees someone in a dream, they see, whether it be their friend, a relative that has passed away, a person that they know that has just been buried, all of a sudden they see them in the dream. Do they see them in their elemental human body? The ulama say no. They see what they see in their dreams because they have visualized the barzakh body, which is identical to the body that you had in this world. And when we are resurrected how we died. Very clear difference between how we're put into Jannah, how we're put into hell, and how we're resurrected. We're resurrected the way that we died. And the biggest examples we have is at the time of Muawiyah, we had a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, whereby before he dies, before they execute him for loving Amir al-Mu'mineen, they ask him, Hujr ibn Adi, how would you like to die? He says, firstly, kill my son before me. That's a strange request. So they kill his son. They say, why? He says, because I fear if you kill me first, he might go off the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So I want to be a father that knows his son has been killed in the way of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Secondly, leave these chains on my hands. Why? He says, leave them so when I'm resurrected, I can tell Rasulullah what has happened to me and how I died. Likewise, when we're mentioning Imam al-Hussein, alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam, what do we remember about the last moment about Imam al-Hussein's life? He says, after his heart, blood pours onto his hand. He throws the first one towards the sky. The second handful he wipes on his beard. What does he say? He says, هكذا ألقى جدي مخضب بدمي وأقول له قتلني فلان وفلان. He says, this is how I shall see my grandfather Rasulullah covered in my blood, and I will tell him such and such and such and such killed me. Meaning we're resurrected in the hereafter how we died. But in Barzakh we're given a Barzakh body that's identical to the body that we have on this world. Now, someone will ask, well, hold on. We know your soul is extracted. Does your soul stay with your grave, with your body, or is your soul taken somewhere else? So when we go and visit the graves, with the intention that the soul is there. But the ulama tell us no, when your soul is extracted from your body, if it's a soul, a righteous soul, it goes to a place where all the righteous souls go, which is known as Wadil Salam. Neighboring Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, that land that has so many merits in it. Some people come and say Wadi Salam isn't necessarily that, which is next to Amir al-Mu'mineen. It has a smaller perimeter than that, which is, because right now it's about 28 kilometers squared or something like that. 8 kilometers squared. It's massive. So is that all that space that if you're buried there you have the merits of the people that are neighboring Amir al-Mu'mineen or not? Traditions tell us it doesn't matter. Wherever you're buried, whether you will be buried in Australia where I'm from, the other side of the world, or you're buried in Antarctica or North America, if your soul is righteous, it goes to Wadil Salam. Now on the opposite agenda, if your soul is that which is wicked soul, a soul which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deems to be a sinner, a person that his end shall be that of hellfire, where do their souls go? Does anyone know? It's known as Wadi Barahut. Some people allocate this place to be in a valley in the country of Yemen. So the evil souls would go to a place, the good souls will go to a place. Amir al-Mu'mineen is once seen standing in Siffin and speaking. When he spoke to the people, his companions saying, who are you talking to, O Amir al-Mu'mineen? He says, I'm talking to the souls that are here. If only you could see what I see, you would see these souls gathered in little groups speaking. So you can imagine if a soul is righteous, it's passed away, and they're speaking towards their friends, and they can imagine that they found out one of their friends passes away. Where is he? We haven't seen him in Wadi Salam. They think to themselves, well, obviously he's gone to Wadi Barahut. So we have an understanding now, souls go a place if they're good, souls go to another place if they're bad. And we understand that now the souls in the Barzakh body are the ones that's either punished, and the souls in the Barzakh body are the ones that are given the heavens, or the Barzakh heaven as we know. So now we begin to have an understanding that this world of Barzakh is an indication of where you're going to be in the hereafter. It's a glimpse of where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall take you in the hereafter. Now let's take the instance of how long this Barzakh is. Nabi Isa ala nabiyyina wa alihi afdal as-salati was-salam gives us different examples. Because we know that Nabi Isa is one of the prophets that could resurrect the dead. In order for him to question them, get a glimpse into the world of the unseen, the world of Barzakh, the world of punishment and rewards. So it says that Isa alayhi salam goes past the grave, that he was so demolished he couldn't even read the writing that's on it. So he says, Bi-idhnillah, I'm going to resurrect this person. He resurrects him. When he resurrects him, you'll find it was a youth that was resurrected. Isa's like, please tell us what just happened in where you dwell. Remember, the grave has been disintegrated over time that you can't even read what's written on it. It barely looks like a grave. A youth emerges. He says, O Nabi Allah, O Ruh Allah, I was buried a few hours ago. How much? A few hours ago. He says, when I was buried, Munkar and Nakir came. Some people refer to them, if you're a righteous person, in different names. Mubashir and Bashir in some traditions. So these two angels come and they ask the questions towards this young man. He answers correctly. They said, they've opened me the gate and I've seen the heavens. I've just entered into this gate and all of a sudden you've resurrected me, O Ruh Allah. And another time, Nabi Allah Isa goes past the grave, just buried, few hours. Resurrects him. When he resurrects him, the tradition says there was a man that was old and his skin was charcoal. His skin was charcoal. So he asked this man, he goes, oh man, tell us about your experience in Barzakh. So he says, oh Ruh Allah, when they buried me, I had Munkar and Nakir come to the grave and they began to ask me questions in which I could not answer. Because you have to remember, these questions, when they ask you who is your Lord, who is your Prophet, who is your Imam, who is your book, it's not necessarily a question that you need to memorize like a test. No. It's if you've applied those principles within your life that your different jawarih will begin to reply. If you haven't implemented this into your life, it doesn't matter how much you've memorized, you won't be able to reply to Munkar and Nakir. So you'll find, he says, I couldn't answer Munkar and Nakir. He says, because I couldn't answer him, one of them, the angels in the grave, took out a whip of fire and began lashing me for years until you've resurrected me. Remember, he's just been buried. But all of a sudden, he's saying that he's been in there for years on end, being punished. So you begin to understand, yes, we know that the when for Barzakh is from when you die until you're resurrected. However, in that period, people will experience it very differently. A person that is God conscious, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that your end result will go towards Jannah, that particular stay within Barzakh will be very short and delightful. Whereas a person that has sinned his entire life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your eternal abode shall be hellfire. Every second will be, God knows how many thousands of years of torture within that alam of Barzakh. Everything that we do in this world has a direct effect. Direct effect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, you do something tiny, it's accountable for if it's good. And likewise, if it's an atom's worth of bad, you're accountable for. So much so, we have a tradition that says there was a allama that we've had. A scholar, a knowledgeable person, everyone loved him. In his tashyi' or tashayyu', thousands of people. One of his students saw him in a dream. When he sees him in a dream, he enters his barzakh, heaven, in his dream, and he sees him sitting. He's telling him, I have such and such, Allah has granted me from my good deeds I've done, such and such, He's gifted me this. It's a garden. All of a sudden, he says, the entire environment and aura changed. Darkness took over. And he says, I saw fear in my teacher like I've never seen in my life. He says, from the end of this Jannah in Barzakh, I saw a small bee come towards my teacher. When it came, he took his tongue out and it stung him, on his tongue. When it stung him, he says, I've never seen him in such excruciating pain. The bee left, and the further it got away from my teacher, the better the environment became. And all of a sudden, my teacher relaxed. And so he says, oh my teacher, oh my master, how? What happened? What's going on? He says, well, to be completely honest with you, I was a great, not boasting, I was a great man. And I did great things. I kept on the straight path as much as I could. I tried to be steadfast on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as I could. I did the mustahabbat, the wajibat. But my wife hasn't forgiven me for something that I have done. He wakes up from the dream. So he goes towards this scholar's house. Knock, knock. Opens the door. I'd like to see the wife of my master. So he goes, of course. Sit down. She comes. So he asks her a question. He goes, oh lady, how great was your husband? And she would say, he was a great man. You know him, everyone knows him. He goes, were you upset with him for anything? He goes, no, what would I be upset with him for? He's treated me right, he's given me everything that I've wanted. He goes, are you sure there's nothing that you have against him, that you haven't forgiven him for? She goes, well, to be honest, there's this one thing that I've never really took out of my heart. He goes, what is it? And look at the simplicity of what he's done versus what we've done. And look at the punishment that he incurred. So she says, you know that I'm elderly. He goes, yeah. May Allah grant you life. And he goes, well, during our life together, whenever we'd go to my parents' house, my name is Fatima. He would call me Fatum. You can give a nickname sometimes to your spouse. His name's Ali, you call him Allush. As an example. She says, I keep telling him, don't call me Fatum in front of my parents. It embarrasses me. I feel a little bit not of my age, not as respectful. So he goes, I've never really got that out of my chest. So the student tells her, he goes, do you know what your husband's going through in the Barzakh? Because of that, you haven't let go of that? She goes, are you serious? It's so tiny, so simple, and he's causing him so much pain and suffering. He goes, yes. He goes, then I've forgiven him, and Allah be witness on me that I've forgiven him. Baba, forgive so Allah can forgive you. Just call me Fatum all you want. So he goes the next night, he has a dream of his master, and his master's thanking him, saying to him, thank you for letting that bee get away from me. So in perspective, what does that teach us? It teaches us that in the world of Barzakh, everything is accountable for. What you do in this life, who you've oppressed, who you've, let's say, not forgiven, the relationships that you have. If someone has something against you, make sure you go and solve it. Try to perfect your lives and make sure that you return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a state where you know that you're pure from any person that you owe or owes you. And there's many things that are recommended before going towards Barzakh: Quran, Wilaya, A'mal, and especially knowledge. And when we find knowledge to be something significant, a person can pray all his life, but we know for a fact that the prayer, the 2 rak'at of a scholar, is very different to a 2 rak'at of a person that doesn't have knowledge, isn't it? So when you increase your knowledge, that reward for that worship becomes multiplied, doesn't it? And that will help you not only in the grave, in Barzakh and the hereafter as well. So that's just a glimpse, inshaAllah, for tonight, into the world of Barzakh. I'm sure many people have a lot of questions. Inshallah, we have the floor open for different questions. Maybe if sister wants to add anything to that, bismillah. Very welcome. Join in with Mike.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. I'd like to thank you for that very informative information regarding Barzakh. There were a couple of things that came to my mind, and after I've asked a couple of questions, I'd like to open it to the floor. I think that aspect of information, application and implementing, when you mentioned that the person that was in the grave could not answer simple questions regarding his Rabb because of the information applied in his life and implemented. Could you explain a bit more around the other things that we do or not do regarding the sawab or the traits, for example, lying, ghibah? Is that a part, does that become part of our soul because of the amount of times we've implemented it? Or is that like a different aspect of Barzakh, that we will be answerable? Or is it that our soul sort of becomes that form because of what we've applied and implemented in our lives?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So basically, if we're looking, it's not actually a basic question, it's a very good question, because our souls, if you look at them, because you remember where this body that we have, we'll find it to be a tool. As an example, these eyes that we utilize, we see with them. But what sees? With this ease that we hear with, what's actually taking this information in, dissecting it, utilizing it? The smell, the mouth, the touch, all of which comes back to our souls, our arwah. In Barzakh, like we said, we're going to either be punished or rewarded. Now, it's a very simple question that the ulama are always asked. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us Jannah or punish us with hell because of our a'mal or because of His mercy? Question. Are we given Jannah because of our a'mal or because of His mercy? He's given us pure souls. We're born on the fitrah, we all know that. It's what we do within life that either keeps our soul pure or begins to diminish our soul, makes it heavier, makes it darkened, discolored, unclear, untransparent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the sister comes and says, well, does the a'mal have a direct impact onto our souls? Without a doubt. Every amal that you do either whitens your soul or darkens it, veils your soul or unveils it. When I say veil, we have many times we read in all the du'as, oh Allah, remove the veil that does such and such. Remove the veil that does such and such. Remove the veil that does such and such. These are veils that we put into our lives, whether it be through sinning, whether it be through eating that which is unlawful, whether it be in a place which Allah deems unworthy for a person to be in, whether it be this tongue. Because you have to understand, there's things that we take for granted, such as lying. Our Imams come forth by saying that if all the sins are kept in a house, the key to that house is, does anyone know the answer? Alcohol. All the sins are left in a house. The key for that house is alcohol. And he says, you know what's greater than alcohol? Lying. Lying greater than alcohol. Imam's saying it. There's things that we think that are small, but in the eyes of Allah are grand. Another example. Someone will come and say, you ask them, is backbiting worse or adultery? will say adultery without a shadow of doubt. The Imams say Allah will forgive adultery, but He won't forgive the backbiter. So there are things that we take for granted. There are things that we think that are small, which are grand, because you have to remember, Imam Zain Abidin says, don't worry about the size of the sin. Remember who you're sinning against. So without a doubt, anything that we do that displeases Allah, that is considered a sin, puts a veil on our soul. That veil will make it difficult for us to reply in barzakh, will become difficult for us to not only reply, because there's a veil, it's not allowing us to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to remove those veils through repentance, through tawbah, through nearness towards Allah. Different a'mal that we can implement. And what better time to implement them than Muharram, where we're in the environment of constantly remembering a man that gave up everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why can't we give up those particular sins in order for us to gain closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to whiten our souls? So inshallah that answered the question.
Thank you very much. Yes, it does. There's just one more question that I'd like to pose to you, something that is very close to me personally, and that's barzakh with children. Some of the research that I've been doing, according to Sheikh Bamanpur, and the work that he's done around barzakh, is that children that have died, that have not become Baalak, have an advantage of the fact that they haven't committed sins, but yet they haven't had an opportunity to understand their Lord. They don't have that opportunity to become closer to Allah, to understand. So how does that work in barzakh and in the hereafter?
Okay. Great question. Great question. Because we know, without a shadow of doubt, especially in Karbala, how many children were massacred. So people will ask the question, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can only hold accountable a person that has reached the age of bulugh, where Allah holds them, he or she, accountable for their actions, for their choices in life, for where they go, and what they choose to do. And so there's a question, obviously, if they haven't reached that particular age, what then does Allah grant these children? And you have to understand that these children, prior to becoming Baalak, are innocent. These children, sometimes, and you think to yourself, and you know, when you look at them and they're looking around in the air, you're thinking to yourself, they're innocent, they don't have any veils, they may be seeing angels. They may be seeing that which we do not see, which we veil ourselves. So that level of innocence and that level of closeness means that their souls are pure. When your souls are pure, there's a study that shows, obviously, you won't go either to a Jannah or that of hell, wa'iyadu billah. Now traditions come and tell us that there's a particular place known as Al-A'raf. Al-A'raf is a place between Jannah and Jahannam. This particular place is an elevated place. The traditions come and tell us that these children that die of innocence will all gather in a place and they'll put Nabi Allah Ibrahim, for example, in one tradition, that will cater for them, will be their mentor, will be around them. I've seen traditions which are not correct because they're not very strong, that these children will have a choice to make, and based on that choice they'll either go towards hell or heaven. It's no such thing. Because they've died in an aspect of innocence, purity. Their souls are pure. They haven't committed a sin. So if they choose wrong, in accordance to that weak hadith, does that mean Allah will give them a place or a barzakh hell because they've chosen? No. So without a shadow of doubt, these children are something that we are all, let's say, aiming to make our souls as pure as that. And without a shadow of doubt, Allah takes extra care of such souls because of their innocence, because of their purity. So inshallah.
The questions to the floor. I'd like to give an opportunity to the sisters. There's a mic on the floor if anybody would like to ask any questions. Okay, if we move to the brothers and then we'll come back if there's any questions.
Sure. Anyone have any questions from the brothers? Bismillah. It's going to test me. I can see that, doctor.
No, I'm not testing you. Oh, Maulana Mookie.
Hi.
Maulana Mookie.
Mughith.
Mookie. Scary.
Mughith.
Mookie. So
I'm a scary?
yeah. So
Yeah.
they'll start
I
calling
haven't
you.
even started yet.
There was a Maulana who talked about the punishment in the grave.
And I'm not going to talk about
And they started calling Maulana Malekul Maut.
Mughith. Malik al-Maut.
Yeah.
Maulana Israel.
So soon you'll be labeled as Maulana.
No, I hope not.
Oh, how do you say
Trying
it?
to paint a nice picture.
How do you say it?
Israel.
No. Okay, one thing on serious note.
Bismillah.
You said when a friend dies,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't go to Wadi Salam, his friends would know it, or he's died, but he's not come here. So he must be on the other side. That's fine. If I am there, and if my friend dies and he's not there, fine. I wouldn't be worrying too much about it.
Okay.
But if I'm there, and my wife dies, and then
no,
she
no.
doesn't come there, I'll be worried.
Do shafa'ah for her.
Can you do something? They say, look, Allah, please forgive her. What I mean,
So-
I'll become sad. Even if I stay there for hundreds of thousands of years, I'll become quite sad that my wife is not there with me. No, serious note.
Yeah.
Friend, oh yes, he was a bad man. But also my wife, she was a good lady.
Yep.
She's there, that's why I'm saying that.
So you're asking, can a person move between Wadi Barahut to Wadi Salam? Is that your question?
Yeah, with the good du'as from a good people.
Okay, so what a'mal would assist the person in Barzakh, basically?
Yeah, to
Yeah.
get his family there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
honestly, even it could be mother or a brother or a son, could be anyone. And you would become sad naturally
Of course,
to say, look, I want my son here, please.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Bismillah. Excellent question. So of the a'mal, we know when a person dies, that's kind of the final abode in the sense of your reward and punishments. However, there are three particular acts which if you do in your life prior to dying, they will assist you in the grave on an ongoing fashion. The first of which is you leave behind that which will benefit people. Let's say you've written a book, people read this particular book. When they read it, they have more knowledge about the religion. They have more understanding about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are educating themselves in a way where something that was not apparent becomes apparent. At the end of the day, you're seeking benefit whilst you're in the grave and your rank is being elevated for yourself. Now, then you have actions. The second is if you are building, let's say a mosque. If you've put this particular one brick in a mosque or one sajjada in a mosque, that is an ongoing sadaqah for you. And the third is if you have left children that become good after you. These are all things that benefit you whilst you're in barzakh in an ongoing fashion, because you've done them before you've passed, before you've returned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The things that we do for the deceased helps them in the grave for a very short time. As an example, we read Surah Al-Fatiha and we'll gift it to one person. That person gets a particular reward in his grave. You can reward that Fatiha to 1,000 people. They'll get the exact same reward. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. He doesn't divide it. He goes the exact same in each and every person. Now, that also means that if a person that is in this world does something for the person that's in the grave, does it change where they are? Like we said, the person was forgiven, then that punishment was taken away. But all of a sudden, can someone do something for that person to change their path? So like we said, the three things that were left behind. Rasulullah passes past the grave once, and then he removed himself. Because the person in the grave was getting punished so much, he feared that some of his companions might be affected by how much he's being punished. On the way back, he stood at the grave and started reciting the Fatiha. The companions are like, hold on the way there, you've all of a sudden says, move away. Now on the way back, you're saying, let's recite a Fatiha for this person. And you'll begin to see that when he's asked, Rasulullah says, when I went there, his son was gone astray, and he was punished for it. Which means, on the flip side, if you leave a son which is bad, it's actually bad for you, and you are responsible and held responsible. But he says, on the way back, that son of his repented and now became a scholar. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has now changed that punishment. But again, that falls under the three categories that we said that you leave behind. So of what we know, these are three things. Rasulullah, there was a person that passed away, he had a business of dates. Business of dates. He passed in his wasiyah, says, give these dates away for charity, for the poor, whoever. So Rasulullah, what does he do? When the person comes to him and he says, oh Rasulullah, my father left behind the will that I should distribute these dates to everyone. Rasulullah replies by saying, if he was alive and distributed one of these many dates, it would have more reward than all of these combined. Giving the idea that you have to do these actions whilst you're here on this world. And these three things that sadaqah jariyah, we call them, ongoing charity, are arguably the things that will assist you the most in changing your destination within the grave. But if a person, for example, does ziyarah, let's say, and gifts it to the deceased, they'll get barakah, but not necessarily will change. Do you know what I mean? If a person's been bad all his life,
What can you do in Wadi Salam?
in Wadi Salam,
To help people, so-called relative and the other one.
or to assist them there. Well, you can't do anything in Wadi Salam to assist them. I mean, you can, see there's two different, and I'm going to go to the question, but there's two different ways. So people have to ask the question, can we meet our deceased? Or can they meet us? Because how are you going to give them the information, for example? And there's two different things. So if you die, let's say, as a shaheed, if you've died as shaheed, you have the honor of visiting your relatives whenever you wish. They won't know you're there unless you come in alam al-ru'ya, which is the world of the dream. But you can visit them whenever, if you're a shaheed. Otherwise, people have ranks, which means that, say, you're a righteous person, you may visit your relatives once a week, twice a week, 3 times, once a month, once a year. But if you're righteous, the angels take you and show you only that which pleases your soul. And on the opposite side, if you're evil, they'll show you only that which displeases your soul, so your family's sinning, etc. So the way that you can, when you're already in barzakh, so it's kind of like a cut-off to come and assist people that in this world, unless it's alam al-ru'ya, you give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for them to see you in alam al-ru'ya, you can give them advice. Many people have given advice to people in alam al-ru'ya, say make sure you hold on to this and this. We have, for example, Allama that came and said, he wrote books upon books, and he's seeing his son, he says, well, to assist him, if you're saying, books upon books, his son would tell him, this is because of all the things that you've written for Ahlul Bayt. This is where you're in, this heaven. And he says, no. He says, then what's this heaven that you're in from? He says, make sure you hold on to Ziyarat Ashura. For example, that's something that's come from the world of Barzakh to assist us with our world so we can hold on to. Does that make sense? But once you're in Barzakh, it's very difficult to contact the world of the living to tell them, make sure you stay away from this.
We can go on the field
Yeah. Sure. Sure. Inshallah, if Allah allows you, yeah. 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 But that's alam al-ru'ya, in the world of the dreams. So yeah. But if Allah allows you to do that, it's a different story altogether. So that is a capability that is possible. But again, you'd have to have a certain rank, etc. I've never been there. So, but from what we know, you can. Yeah. She's getting scared.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. Can I open the floor to the ladies?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I've got 3 questions from the ladies over here, if that's okay.
Bismillah. Inshallah.
The first question is, as we know, there are many forms of oppression in this world. What kinds of things would people in Barza go through if, number 1, they have oppressed others, and if, number 2, they were oppressed? That's the first
So what was
question.
number 1? Apologies.
What would someone go through in Barzakh if they've oppressed other people?
Yep.
And for example, what would someone else go through if they've been oppressed?
They've been oppressed.
Yes.
So if you've been oppressed, obviously, well, that also depends if you've been oppressed but you're in the hell kind of barzakh, or you've been oppressed if you're in the heaven barzakh. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accounts for everything. So let's say you're in like the hell barzakh and you've been oppressed, Allah will obviously maybe minimize the adab for you. And likewise, if you're in Jannah barzakh and you have oppressed but your final abode, you'll obviously be punished within that. Like we said with that incident, everything's accountable for. As for the type of punishment, every single person's barzakh is different. Every person's barzakh is different. And from the accounts that we haven't seen, some people, they've literally said, we've been dead for thousands of years, and we've just stepped foot into this place, and now we'll be resurrected. So, and these people have been lived for thousands of years. So to say an exact particular oppression and exactly what you're going to be punished in barzakh, you can't really signify. But like I said, if you have oppressed, Allah will give you particular punishment. And again, it depends if you're oppressed and if you're in Jannah or Jahannam, if hopefully that makes sense. But a particular written adab, if you're an oppressor, you have to remember there's different types of oppression as well. A person that oppresses, an animal, a human, a yatim, himself, his children, his mother and father, all different. So, yeah, there's no actual written thing. So, but inshallah we can understand that. Let's not be oppressors, and rather be the person that's being oppressed.
Thank you.
That's the first question.
Yes. The second question is, when a person is in barzakh, how does he know of who has died? So how does he get that news of someone?
So when you're in barzakh, you have to understand that you're now rid of. Yes, you're still acknowledging your family, and depending if you're in the Jannah side, when you're in the Jannah side, like we said just earlier to Doctor, that you will have the ability to visit your family in different time periods. Let's say you're very righteous, we said you're a shaheed, visit them whenever you want. So when you're visiting them, you can obviously see who's left, who's not left. And obviously if they've joined you in Jannah of Barzakh, you'd know. If they haven't joined you and you haven't seen them with the family, you'd also conclude that they're somewhere else. And, other people will find out in a later time, because, for example, they won't be allowed to see their families until 1 year has passed because of their actions. They'll find out at the end of the year that someone's passed and it hasn't come towards, Wadi Salam, let's say, if that's where they dwell. Does that make sense? Inshallah?
And the third question is, if the soul is in Barzakh, then what's the point of going to the cemetery?
Yep.
So being buried.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Okay. So going to the cemetery has its own benefits. The first of which, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, remember the days of Allah. And when you go to the hadith, one of the days is the day of your death. So when you remember death, it's a reminder for you that this is where you're going to be one day. That whatever you do in this life, remember to humble yourself and remember that this is where your end will be. It doesn't matter how high, where you go, what you do, what you achieve, the end will all be the same. Number one. Number two, when you go to the grave, the body is directly connected with the soul. Yes, the soul has left the body, but there remains a connection. As an example, all our traditions will tell us, if you were to take palm trees and place them into the dirt that covers that particular body, that body will that person will not have any punishment until these particular palm trees wither and die. Yes? We also know if you're reciting Fatiha or reciting Quran, whether you're at the grave or not, and you give it to that person, that person, whoever his soul is, will know, will listen, will hear, will attain that reward. You imagine they're sitting in a gathering, all of a sudden one person gets an angel giving them gifts, or all of a sudden be in a state of happiness, or something around them changes because of what you've done for them, or what you've sent in du'as or supplications or a'mal towards them. So there's a direct connection without a shadow of doubt. So going towards the graves, visiting them, speaking with them, they will hear you. So inshallah that makes sense of the benefits.
Can I ask and add on to the previous question? When you said that if a person who's passed away in Barzakh wasn't so righteous, then he may not visit he or she may not visit his family as often as someone else. For example, what can the family members or the friends do anything to get visits, if that makes sense?
Get visits, huh?
Get visits or feel their presence, for example, but they were not righteous, but the family is righteous, for example.
See, what you'll find, excellent question. What you'll find is people that are suffering in Barzakh, you'll find more likely will hear about it than the people that are in lavish lifestyles within Barzakh. And you'll find the reason for that, it seems all of a sudden that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His mercy, He shows the struggles of some people to their relatives, to their friends, whether it be mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. It's as if to say that, you know what, I'm in need of your supplication. I'm in need of movement in order for me to have a better life within this barzakh of mine. And you'll find that people that are suffering are more likely. What you hear, especially within the books, as I said, there's a larger percentage of people that are struggling that try to reach out towards their families to assist them. The people that are in lavish lifestyles, they're thinking to themselves, oh, we already got Jannah. We'd like to go see our families. But to reach out, just to check up on, you won't reach out in Jannah unless you're having to tell them something, or you know what I mean. And there's also this aspect of alam al-mukashafa. So alam al-mukashafa is an alam that the righteous people can touch or can utilize. The ma'soomeen, the a'imma, the infallibles. This alam directs you, allow you to remove the veils from barzakh to this world. And many people have gone to the Imams. Obviously we don't have an Imam that is contactable now, but in the time of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, inshallah, we'll have the ability to do that. So inshallah it'll be in our lifetime that we'll be able to, because many people went to the Imams and they said, well, we want to know, they had the same question. can you tell me, for example, one person went to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and he would say to Imam al-Baqir, my father died having hatred in his heart for Ahlul Bayt. And he had wealth. And he hid it from me because I have wilayah for you. Oh, my Imam, will you not tell me where he's buried? So the Imam, in a very long tradition, he would say to him, go to Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Medina, to the Baqi', at night, call someone by the name of Darjan. He says, when he comes, give him this note that I'm about to write for you, and he'll bring you your father. So he goes at night, he says, Darjan, Darjan, he comes. He says, who invokes my name? He says, I'm from the Imam al-Baqir. He says, what does my Imam want? Gives him a letter, goes, brings back a person that we said earlier, charcoal. And he says, that's not my father. And he goes, no, this is your father. He goes, that's not my father. And then he spoke, he said, I am your father. He goes, what's happened to you? He says, this is what a person gets in the grave that has rejected the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he says, I know why you're here, my son. He says, I've buried 100,000 dinars under this particular palm tree in this location. Give half of it to the Imam, and you take half. So he returns with half of that amount to Imam al-Baqir. He says, did you see your father? He says, yes. That is known as Al al-Mukashafa. So the Imams had the ability to contact whenever they wanted. And inshallah, in the time of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, we'll also be able to. Otherwise, we'll just have to wait to see in the dreams or pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to see what state they're in. And with seeing the state or not, as a person that has a relative also, always try to gift them. Always, whenever you recite 2 rak'at, gift it. Firstly towards our Imam, and then towards those that have been deceased. Because like we said, it's not like a cup of water. Like let's say I recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and let's say if a person's being punished, and you mention one person's name, then you mention second person's name. It's not like Allah will split that cup of water in half. No. Allah gives the same amount, because Allah is all merciful. So you read the whole Quran, and you gift it to all the amwat. If you say, I want to gift this khatma in Ramadan to all the amwat that have died from the Haydari community, Allah will give each one the reward of the entire Quran in their graves. So it's a good practice to have as a community, as an individual, that we always remember our dead. Whenever we do an act, whether it be mustahab, whether it be wajib, whether it be a salawat, because they'll constantly be getting those rewards from us and be in a better place. Visit the graves, put the palm trees on, remember them. If they have children that have gone off the path, if you're trying to help the deceased, get them on the path and become righteous in order for their parents to be in a better place. And also always remember our parents. If we're always in the right path and we're doing that which is good and pleasing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're going to attain that. And if they're in a place which is bad, Allah will change it to a place which is good, inshallah.
I think we'll take one question from the men's and then wrap up. And one from the ladies.
Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wassalam wa rahmatullah.
So, I understand that when we go to Barzakh, it's our own journey, correct?
Yes.
Yes. On the way, do we see any of our relatives that can, let's say, help us or help us feel less lonely so we can have someone to comfort us in Barzakh? And also, if you're in the bad part of Barzakh, let's say, for example, is there any chance to repent to Allah and ask Him for forgiveness to go to Jannah, inshallah?
That's an excellent question. So as for loneliness, so you've got to remember you're at a place, all of a sudden, the Imam Ali says that the mu'mineen are hilaqan hilaqa, meaning it doesn't matter if you're the only person from your own family that has passed. When you go towards this place of righteous people, it's as if you go, let's say, to school, where you meet friends, that you make new friends, that share the same mentality as you, that are reaching the same destination, same goal. And if you can discuss things that, for example, are, let's say you'll discuss aspects of religion, you'll discuss mercy of Allah, you'll discuss what's happening in the next life. This hilab, this place where you're going, it's a place where everyone, if you're going to the good place, the righteous place, is everyone that is on the same journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? So in the aspect of loneliness, there won't be loneliness because you don't have family, because there'll be a different type of family that you're going to make friends with. Does that make sense? To answer the question. As for the second part, can you do istighfar whilst you're in the, to repent towards Allah? Like we said earlier, there's only 3 things that will really help you change the course in Barzakh. However, after Barzakh, there's so many aspects. If you have, let's say, for example, the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that there you may attain shafa'ah in the hereafter, that it changes your course from one way to the other. As for changing your course within Barzakh, like we said, the 3 sadaqah jariyah are the best to change your course. Otherwise, it's temporary kind of relief from the punishment. Does that make sense? And also, there is, I don't want to make it too controversial, but there is an aspect that I've read that a person, obviously not everyone is either good or bad. Yeah? Person has that which is done is good, that which is done is bad. Ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges. But some people, there are things, you're ultimately going to that place which is good. But there are some things that you need to be punished for. Does that make sense? So you could have had a bit of punishment, then seek ultimate reward. Or your day is comprised of punishment and 3/4 reward. Because I don't want to confuse you too much. So that, for example, that person that we mentioned, his day was all happy. But that one portion of his day, he had to pay for that particular act which he did. So that day within Barzakh could be consistent of good and bad. Does that help answer the question or get it? Yeah? Inshallah, I didn't confuse anyone with that last part. I was trying to not mention it as much as I could, just so it becomes very clear. But inshallah, that makes sense. Bismillah.
The ladies?
Just going back to what you said about parents being punished in the grave because of what their children are doing. What if you brought up your children properly and, for example, they go to university and go astray and change their lifestyles later on? And also going on another way, where your partner was okay at the beginning and they've gone astray and they're your children's role models, then are you still going to get punished then later on? Would you leave your partners then?
No, see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all merciful, all knowing, He will see what you've done in the aspect of raising your children. So we've seen, obviously, many times that parents do everything. They've given everything to their children, their time, money, lessons. And at the end of the day, that child turns around and goes into a completely different direction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His mercy knows where you wanted to take that child. Yes? He's seen what you've gone through, the struggles. And obviously at the end of the day, if that child's gone astray, you'll find many people have dissociated themselves, yes? As an example, Nabi Allah Nuh, when his son goes on the top of the mountain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, that's my son. Allah says, don't worry, he's not one of you. Saying to him that yes, you're on a different path, but all of a sudden your son has deviated from the path that you've set for yourself, your family, and your children. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we said, if that's, because some people, you know, the lucky ones where they've done minimal and all of a sudden your child is going to become Ayatollah. It just doesn't happen like that. But let's take that assumption. Obviously, if you're a bad person and all of a sudden someone comes in, taking extremes, and your son becomes an Ayatollah, you'll get the rewards, but you wouldn't get the same reward that you would get if, let's say, you've actually raised them. Ayatollah Ansari's mother was asked, he would say, what did you do that your son became such a grand person? She goes, well, to be honest with you, I thought he'd become greater. Why? She goes, every time that I breastfed him, I had to make wudu, so I am always in a state of purity. So you see what that mother did for her son. That she wanted to take him to the right path, towards salvation, towards Allah, towards something grand. And obviously she'll be rewarded for that because of the effort that she's put in. She's going to get extra rewards because of how he turned out. So to answer your question plainly, obviously that effort that you've put in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that into account. When he's judging, inshallah there.
Because I'm a chair lady,
yeah,
I've got a bit of a bias, so we still have a few questions. Is that the last one in the ladies? Or is there anyone else? That's the last one, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just had a question about...
There's one here as well. Just the lady, okay. Allah.
What were your thoughts about reincarnation? And so in other cultures and other beliefs, they talk about reincarnation and the fact that before the judgment day, bodies will be reincarnated and souls will be reincarnated into different bodies. And in Islam, we don't believe in reincarnation. I just wanted to know what your arguments were for that. And yeah.
So you're asking, in the dictionary definition of reincarnation, is that your soul, once it leaves your body, it is put into a different body. So in accordance to Islam, we did say that your soul is taken from your human body, put into your barzakh body, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrects us, He's putting our souls back into our original bodies. Now, that is not considered a different body because this body and the barzakh body are both yours. So Islamically, if someone comes and says, well, Islam believes in reincarnation because you've said barzakh body and, this human earthly body is going to be the same as the hereafter. No, it's your body. You're not being resurrected under a different person or going to a different womb, or a different family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the time of arwah, and subhanallah, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, because sometimes we look at someone, without knowing them, automatically you're thinking to yourself, I really like this person for some reason. I feel that I know this person from years ago. Other people you've never met in your life, automatically, before knowing them, you have this thing within you, instinct, that you stay away from them. Something makes you uncomfortable around them. So Amir is asked, like, why is that? And he says, الأرواح جنود مجندة من تعارف منها ائتلف ومن تفارق اختلف. From the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the souls, عالم الأرواح, these souls were put into a جنود مجندة, meaning it's like a part of an army. So much so that they have different groups amongst themselves. So when you see a person for the first time and you feel comfortable and an inclination towards them, it could have a reason behind it that alam al-arwah, your souls knew each other, even though your now body with this brain of yours cannot remember that which happened previously. So with reincarnation, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allocated you one body, one barzakh body, and that body in the hereafter is the same that you are having right now, that you'll either be punished or rewarded for. And we completely refute the aspect of reincarnation from other ideologies and sects. Inshallah, that answers the question. Yes? No.
No more? Please. The men can... Shall we take one more from the ladies, if you don't mind? One sentence question. Come on, Bismillah. Yeah, you can be. You can talk to them. Can I... Excuse me. No, excuse me. You can go into come to talk. Okay, sorry, we're going to close down. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, big salawat for Syed for a brilliant lecture. Salawat. And those who want to talk to Syed, come one-to-one. And the ladies, I'm sure Mariam can arrange it. They can talk to one Syed, please. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Yeah? Thank you.